I live in Florida, so our crazes are world renowned. A friend and I were exploring an L-shaped two-story motel from the 80s, just taking photos and stuff. We looked through the first floor, northwest to northeast, then to southeast. Then we climbed the southeast stairwell, worked our way along, just looking around and stuff. Right at the inside corner of the L was a large industrial steel door that was ajar a few inches. My friend wanted to see inside, hoping it was a utility room because he loved pipes and that sort of thing. The bottom of the door dragged on the floor, so we both leaned in and heaved it open enough to see inside. At this point, I should have been alerted by the scent, like bleach and ball sweat, but I didn't even notice it back then. I clicked my flashlight on, shone it in, and was met with the sight of a full-on meth den. A layer of sleeping bags, the assorted detritus of shake-and-bake meth, and 4, maybe 5, gaunt, scabby bodies laid across the floor. Before we could even react, a dirty shirtless man and dirtier woman looked at us. We didn't even say anything, neither did they. A millisecond worth of eye contact that lasted nearly an hour. Then we bolted towards the exit, which was down the northwest stairwell and out the hole in the fence. As we reached the corner, I looked back to see them stumbling rapidly after us, screaming, then turned the corner and found myself staring down where the stairs used to be. I've never been a fan of parkour. Jumping off things didn't sound like my kind of fun, but I hopped over the handrail like a pro. Tucked, rolled, dead sprint to the fence, flung my backpack over and shoved my way through the hole in the fence. Then I held it open so my friend could get through easier. Once through the fence, we took a moment to look back. They screamed at us from the corner of the upper walkway, the man gesticulating wildly with a knife and the woman with a broken bottle. We scampered through the brush to his car and took off, only stopping 15 minutes later at a gas station so we could make sure his ankle wasn't broken from the landing. While there, I called the police and grabbed snacks to eat away the low blood sugar caused by the adrenaline rush. We easily could have lost our lives that day, but instead, we got one sprained ankle and one hell of a story. The same friend took a knife in the gut during a similar incident in Miami, but I wasn't there, so it's not my story to tell. My partner and I were invited to join 2 people in going to an asylum to drink and have fun. Now me nor my partner Jesse, we don't drink, so we decided to use this opportunity to explore this old building. Like all my adventure spots, I like to do a little research on the location to know what we were in for. In the late 1940s, this building was used for housing the insane, but wasn't keen on it. The building had many shortcuts taken when it was being built, making the floors unstable, pipes that were contaminated with fungus, and beds with rustic springs. The overseer of this building wasn't kind to the patients, for he'd mock them, hit them, spit on them, and one report even details an event where he would attack an audio-sensitive person by clapping his hands while 2 orderlies held him so he couldn't cover his ears. If there is a house of horrors, this was the place. The building eventually got shut down after many started investigating the overseer's actions. He took his life before any concrete evidence was brought to light. When we arrived, the 2 people that invited us had 4 cases of beer under their arms and more than enough jelly beans to put anyone in a diabetic coma. They sat in the entrance area of the building and brought 2 very weathered benches together, making some sort of bed. If they were going to get drunk enough to have sex in this place, they were certainly crazy. Me and Jess decided to explore the 2nd floor, since the structure of the building was questionable, and the most unstable parts of the floors were 3 and the roof. The building layout was very prison-like, in the way that the rooms had heavy metal doors with viewer slots at eye level. It was like you'd see in Solitary. The rooms were limited to a mirror, a bed, and a window. Any privacy was taken when they needed help going to the bathroom. Most of the rooms were covered in dried feces and blood. The walls, the ceilings, and the floors were never cleaned, meaning that they slept in their filth. One cell had cracks in the wall tiles from someone banging their head or fist into the wall. We reached the end of the hall when Jess turned to me and said, "Did you hear that?" I went silent, trying to hear anything, but the only noise I heard was the trees from outside. What did it sound like? Like someone laughing. Could it have been from downstairs? No, it was more cynical than that. We decided to go be with the party animals for a bit before going down to the final sweep of the floors and the one in the basement. The basement was rumored to have an incinerator, for reasons that you can guess. But upon returning to the reception area, the two people that we had came with were already gone. Their bears were all over the floors, meaning that they were spooked and left in a hurry. Jess and I decided to cut the trip short and leave quickly. We found them quite a distance away from the building, hiding in some weeds. "What are you doing?" I asked, helping them out of the bush. "There's someone in there," the man who invited us said. "What do you mean?" He explained how they heard the laughing that Jess did, but after 2 or 3 minutes after the laugh, a man emerged from the first floor hallway, crawling on his hands and knees towards them. He wasn't fast or aggressive, he just seemed to have wandered and scared them. I was doubting the crazed man, but when Jesse and I went back in to check it out, he was there, naked as a newborn and scarred with various marks all over his body. His eyes were wider than any human's should have been. It was as though he didn't have any eyelids at all. He sat there on the bench, giggling and twitching his head. His hair was spotted, like he had ripped out large clumps of it. I grabbed Jesse's arm and pulled us out of there. As we left, I looked at the second floor and saw another man, just like the first one, only he had long hair on one side. I don't know who they are, but I just hope they didn't follow us. A group of friends and I would go out on weekends to explore old abandoned buildings pretty regularly. We had some wild experiences, but there's one that I thought I would share specifically. There was an old abandoned elementary school that we had heard about from another group of friends, and from what they said, it was super creepy. Supposedly, there had been some squatters caught in there, whacked out of their minds on drugs. We finally got a free night to go down there, but it was locked. It's probably a good thing, since it was just 3 of us, my girlfriend, her friend, and I. So a few nights passed, and our whole gang was able to make it to the next round. Someone had messed with the door by this time, because it was what looked like a forceful entry. We all squeezed through the door and entered a pitch-black building. Keep in mind, this was a fairly small elementary school that was essentially a long rectangular building with only 2 floors and stairways at both ends. So we turned on our flashlights and started trucking through. It was weird to see all the old degraded papers laying on the floor, like it was abandoned abruptly for some unknown reason. There were even old mattresses and nasty needles and tubes for druggies that slept there. We started going through the upstairs first and worked our way to the other end and walked down. We started going through the bottom floor of classrooms when all of a sudden we heard a door slam, hard. We were all accounted for, so it wasn't anyone pulling a prank. Then it happened again. Everyone started to book it out of the room and headed towards the double door entry, but we all stopped for some reason. We sat there quietly, waiting, listening. Nothing. Adrenaline had kicked in, so I had a bit of a backbone, so I kicked the door closed by me and hollered out to see if it was a prankster. A few seconds later, out of the darkness, we heard a boom from another door slammed shut, even closer than before. We took off out of that place like a bat out of hell. Everyone got to their cars when we looked back and saw blue lights. Crap, it was the cops. He explained that we were having some innocent fun, just trying to get our scare from abandoned buildings. They thankfully let us go with a warning, but we told them that we had heard some doors slamming, so they went in to check it out. As we were leaving, we drove past a cracked out dude, walking down this 1-lane road from the high school. He was carrying a Bowie knife on his side and was using the light from his phone, so either the place was haunted, or that cracked out dude was in there, hiding, in the dark, watching us from the shadows. I genuinely can't tell you which one would be worse.